Welcome. We're with Blender 2.67. We've just done a cell fracture. This is a continuation of a previous video, so I didn't give you much of a lead-in. I just jumped right into it. We see some problems with the cell fracture. Looking at the materials panel, we see some pieces that have the internal color and not the external color. And the T's have problems. That's something I've experienced in the past with this particular mesh and font. And the R and the A have multiple copies and they seem to be connected. So in the previous video we talked about having a text object, we convert it to mesh, and then we remove doubles. So we've already done that prior to the beginning of this video. Now we're going to look at the letter T. I've experienced this before with the same font and letter. And Blender has a panel that will allow us to look at the area of a face. Now, it's easy for me to read a 0 on the screen, relatively easy, and it would be more difficult for me to do other things, but I could have moved some vertices around to show you, and I'll do that in a moment. So we see those zeros on the top, so that tells us there's some faces that are very poorly formed, and so we're going to change that. This is just one problem. There are other problems in the mesh, but we'll tackle one or two in hopefully 10 minutes or less. We're in face mode now, and I will move around the bottom so you can see the hidden faces appear. And then you see two of them in front and two in back. So for the next 2 minutes we'll remove faces. I'm sure many of you can do this faster than I can. Just demonstrating how the faces disappear when we're in the original position and then appear as we stretch them. Stretch down the z-axis. So we'll start by deleting faces, and we'll continue with edges and faces for the next minute or so. Now, we have a simple letter here. I haven't experienced it, but I assume that could get more complicated for very curvy letters if they experience these types of problems. But in fact, the letter T is the one that I've seen consistently have this problem with this particular font. And I definitely found it useful to display the face info area as you see on this right hand side of the screen. However, the first time I encountered this problem, it consumed more time than 10 minutes because I was experimenting with cell fracture, and when things went wrong, I didn't know who was the most likely culprit. So now that I've learned and had experience with a few cell fractures, I don't necessarily trust what's delivered from the text to mesh conversion. Now you've seen I've deleted all these edges and faces, and I moved the bottom portion down by a known amount so I can move it back up to its original position. I'm keeping the same shape as before. I'm just creating a mesh that is more compatible with cell fracture. So we think we have all of our vertices, and you may have noticed that there was a loop cut and slide on the top, so I could match the bottom and top of the T. That's where that face was just connected. We've added back 3 faces, and we'll look at the opposite side. Again, the loop cut and slide area is what I'll connect first with the face. I think many of you can do this faster than I'm doing it. So we've corrected our T, and I say that because I've had some past experience again with it. So let's do a cell fracture again and see if the T area looks better. We have a preset. By the way, cell fracture does not necessarily update its screen when you choose a preset, so something to know. The cell fracture looks pretty good. We're scaling to object centers, and now there's a small problem for this particular cell fracture. At other points it's been a very large problem. But if we look at the R and the A, which we just deleted, the R and the A seem to be connected. We examine the mesh, and they still look connected, so that's not something, that is what was delivered by the mesh, the text to mesh conversion. And we're going to see if we do it a second time, will it produce a larger problem. I'm hoping it will produce a large problem to support my video. Again, with text to mesh, we do a conversion, text to mesh, and then remove doubles. I repeat that because that may be what some people are looking for. It's a basic step. Again, it looks pretty good, but if I'm being picky, I'll examine between the R and the A, and a fragment spans those two letters, so we tend to think that there's a problem there as well. So we examine the mesh, we look at non-manifold. It identified a problem area. We need to remove that problem area because we're being picky in this example. So we want to separate the two letter forms. We're going to split them. I'm showing you the menu, and I also want to show you how they actually are connected. Again, I want each letter to be a separate piece of the mesh. And I have separated them with Y. I changed the position of the letter A just to suit my taste. We're doing a cell fracture. So we'll assume for today that we've had only 2 problems and corrected both problems. But there's still other problems that can occur, and that's for another video. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you have time to explore cell fracture. It's a good tool to work with, even with its challenges. Thanks very much, and you're free to comment, and have fun using Blender.